Final hour Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, Frankie Corrado, Al's brother coming up, and Luke Willson. Al's brother coming up.
You gotta stop doing that,
and
man.
Luke Willson. I'm just
one of these guys won a Super Bowl.
And one of these guys has tremendous information and is 1-0 this week.
One of these guys was on a riverboat last week.
Yeah, he was, man. He's cruising around the world. Al's brother's, he's basically a sailor these days. He's constantly cruising.
Yeah.
It's outstanding. And, the two of them coming up in best bets later in the hour. And credit to the Jets. They got beaten down week 1 in San Fran. It was ugly, and now they've won 2 straight. They're 2-1, and they're in a pretty good spot right now.
The thing that I've noticed, like the beauty of the NFL is it's so reactional, and you don't play again for a week, so people just get so worked up, about a big win or a big loss. Like the swings of emotion are so huge as a fan. That's what's crazy.
It's incredible.
Patriots
Every
win
week
the
is massive.
First week, it's like, maybe they can make the playoff. Maybe they can. And then you're like, okay, they can't. And then, a team starts 0-2. It's like there's zero chance. Maybe this is the year they're not going to have.
Well, that's what sucks is it's such a long offseason, Noodles.
Yeah.
You have to wait for like 7 months. And if your team starts 0-2 and they're done already, it's just so tough to get up for the rest of the year. Unless there's a big quarterback in the draft and you're tanking, like the tank stuff comes up, and there will be a couple of quarterbacks, no doubt. I'm telling you, next year, that Arch Manning kid, when he comes out, because he's starting this week, right? That Quinn Ewers, I think is his name, the quarterback for Texas, is still injured, so he's out. It's been announced that Manning's playing. So he's starting and he's playing. And I think he'll be replaced when the starting quarterback returns. But next year it's his show, and if he has a full year where they're highly ranked and he wins a Heisman or something, there will be teams handing over wins to finish 0-17. So that
talk to Carolina about how that's going for them, because they thought they had their quarterback, and there's such a circus. It's such a disaster there, and like that quarterback is now benched. So you can tank all you want if you're them. You'll get the next guy, and you'll probably mess it up with him too.
That's very valid. You watch what you wish for, man. It's never
see that owner?
That simple.
Do you see that owner walking on the field?
Yeah, he's out of practice. David
no
Tepper.
one paid him any attention. No one looked over to him. No one went over to shake his hands. Like, I got to think if Jerry is down at practice and he walks on the field, guys are like paying their respects to him.
But
that was not the
it.
case.
Think about it though, guys. Like, I don't know, like when I played on certain teams, like I couldn't tell you what the owner looked like. If it was a single owner. I played for the Rangers. I feel like I know what Jim Dolan kind of looked like. You know what I mean? But he wasn't walking in the dressing room or fumbling around or, bringing his kids out to skate. Like you kind of knew. If you had certain teams that have a single owner or, a board like Larry Tannenbaum, I know what he looks like.
People know Larry Tannenbaum.
I knew when Larry was around. You could tell when Larry was around.
How many of the MLSE teams know what Edward Rodgers looks like?
I couldn't.
How many players?
I looked him up yesterday. Like I just to see because I wasn't sure how old he was. Now he's 55, I believe. Is it the younger? It's a son, right? Like
it's not Ted. Yeah, Ted Rodgers passed away quite some time ago.
But it's just
Edward Rodgers.
I was looking at Edward Rodgers, 55 years old. He's young and spry, and he'll be right in the middle of everything. But I had to look him up.
Yeah, well, exactly. And again, you don't work for him, so that's natural. But what I'm saying is, can every Leaf, like, does Simone Benoit know what he looks like? Like, if Edward Rodgers walks into the room, is Simone saying, hey, who let this guy in? Is that happening if you show up at Raptors, at OVO or something? Is someone further down the lineup saying, who the hell is this guy? Why is he here right now? And he owns the team.
Can you imagine you big league the owner of the team?
Oh, yeah.
The owner. That would be pretty wild.
Like you have no time for the guy. Like
right.
you just blow him off. You're like you don't shake his hand. You don't introduce yourself, and then 2 minutes later, someone's like, "Hey, man, that's the owner of the team."
That's the guy who just gave you a massive amount of money.
Exactly, and he's taking it away because you dusted him off. You will be on the trade block.
You called in security to get him out of here.
Exactly.
All right, Al's brother is coming up. People want to know exactly when he will join us. There's no guarantee. I can't give you that exact time because he will come storming in. And when he storms in, he will storm in with accurate information, tremendously accurate information. And what a call last night. Everyone was on the Pats. The whole world was calling us buffoons. Gut instinct, tremendous information. Hayes and Bro are moving in a very positive direction. So Al's brother coming up momentarily, but prior to Al's brother, here's our main man, Luke Willson. Luke, go ahead. The floor is yours. Please pump the tires of Al's brother. Go ahead.
I'll be honest, Hayes. It was a tough night. Obviously, he got his first win of the year. It took him to week 3.
Yeah.
But I sit here and I'm like, man, this guy he's got his bot farm spamming me on Twitter. Like I'm getting tweets right now from people that are not real humans. They're him. And it's just upsetting because, again, somehow we've gotten one win out of Al's brother. Hayes, you have one win yourself. Let's call it 2 now because you agree with Al's bro.
Thank you.
And we've now acted like it's the Super Bowl and it's week 3. Again, I know Parchi isn't on today, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey, you got lucky last night. The Patriots missed 14 tackles. You want to crunch numbers here? Aaron Rodgers looked tremendous, but the Patriots looked horrible, terrible. Great call, win's a win. I tip my cap to this guy. He does not have to get on the bot farm and send 15 different tweets to me from his own accounts, his own whatever you call it, bot account, saying these things. He doesn't have to do that.
I love it. Wow. It's like what's that movie where it's Mr. Anderson? Mr. Anderson. There's just all these different bots popping up, and it's Al's brother.
I know it's him.
Yeah.
I know that the guy that says, I think I got a tweet today that said Al's brother demands an apology, and the hashtag was the mention was at Kate Breton 82.
Yeah.
Okay, and they all talk about the same thing: politics and wrestling. I'm sick of the bot farm. I'm sick of it.
The Matrix, man.
It is.
You're
That's
inside
what it is.
You're inside the Matrix right now.
I just noticed with Al's brother, when things go south, like he's quiet. Like the text chain is quiet. Everything's quiet. But, man, when things are headed his direction, he is front and center and feeling
it.
Dude,
Luke, let me ask you this. You know the embrace with Salah and Rodgers? If Hayes and Al's brother were to have that embrace, who is Salah and who is Rodgers in that situation?
If I were to answer that, I would say that Hayes is definitely Rodgers, and Al's bro is Salah. And the response is, and why I say that is because Hayes, as much as I hate saying this, I think the guy's a decent picker here. I really do, Hayes. And I think the guy knows his stuff. Al's bro is on the hot seat, very similar to Robert Saleh. And that's what I think happened in that moment, is Robert Saleh sitting there like, hey, we lost week 1. We snuck by Tennessee. We let the Patriots, who we've historically not been great against. And all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers showed up. And that was a beatdown of epic proportions. Mm-hmm. From the opening kickoff, the Jets manhandled that game. And it could have been worse if the Jets didn't get so many penalties. The penalties kept it somewhat close for a little bit.
Well, yeah.
So Robert Saleh is sitting there, a.k.a. Hayes, a.k.a. Al's bro, like, man, I'm about to get fired. And Hayes comes in and saves the day, which leads me to believe, Frankie, that it was actually Hayes' pick last night. And I got a feeling if you were to, check Hayes' phone right now, there's probably a text on there from Al's bro that says, hey, I really like the Pats. And Hayes says, absolutely not. We are going with the Jets.
No, fake news, and no chance. I'm not doing that to Robert Saleh. I will not do that to him. It was. I found that game thoroughly entertaining from a viewpoint of watching Rodgers play. He was slinging it, man, and you said it yesterday, Luke. You thought he was ready to do that. And I think if you look at his pass to Garrett Wilson in particular, that is so gorgeous. Like it's off his off foot, he slings it on a rope and through the defender's hand. Like I think a lot of quarterbacks, like if Jacoby Brissett tried that last night, that's a pick six. 100-yard pick six.
100%.
He threaded the needle so beautifully with no pulse. I mean, the guy when he's dancing and he's on his toes and he's ready to play and he feels like he's got a read on what's going on the other side of the ball, it's poetic.
Special.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. You said it, poetic, special. Even that throw was funny. I was sitting there and I'm watching with our producer, we're going Jay, and before we snapped, because Garrett Wilson had the big play before, and I said, I know how Aaron thinks. I promise you, no matter what is called, and it could have been called, he's throwing this ball to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's going to score here. And it wasn't really like a great look to throw that route, but Aaron is that good. And you said it, Hayes. I mean, you're talking, if we're a millimeter shy, it's knocked down. If we're 2 to 3 centimeters, it's a pick. And if we're a foot off, it's a pick six. And Aaron has just the ability to be like, it does not matter. My accuracy will win this rep, which it was phenomenal. I also thought we talked about it a bit before the game, but you see Aaron play last night. It makes you miss kind of like the old school quarterbacks. It makes you miss the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's. Obviously, Aaron's still doing it. I have a different opinion of this guy than probably most quarterbacks, but Big Ben played against the Legion of Boom one year and threw the ball around like something I'd never seen. And you sit here and you say, like, what happened to those style of guys compared to some of the quarterback play we're seeing now? Again, as much as I hated the Jets covering last night because I knew what was coming with Robert Saleh, a.k.a. Al's bro, it was a special moment, I think, for football because Aaron was cooking.
He was.
Is there anything more you would want to see from Aaron Rodgers before you kind of say he's all the way back? Are you still a little skeptical that he's all the way back?
Frankie, I wouldn't say I'm skeptical. I was probably too positive on the guy week one, in my analysis. I think the world of his ability. The one thing I will say is that right now, Garrett Wilson is his go-to guy, and he didn't have a big night last night, but that's kind of what happens when you play the Patriots. Christian Gonzalez traveled, and they were shading a safety to him, all game. And that's the Bill Belichick, down the Gerard Mayo style of defense. But what I get a bit nervous is last night we finally saw Ty Conklin, Mike Williams a little bit, Alan Lazard had a big night. But like those three guys at some point are going to have to replicate that performance. And it's not so much Aaron, Frankie, it's more so like, can these three guys pick up the slack? Especially, I did think the Jets looked great, but the Patriots, like when you miss 14 tackles, you cannot win a football game in this league. So it's like the Patriots also helped the Jets by the amount of tackles missed, just very poorly played football. So I don't know if I want to say like, hey, I'm completely sold on the situation, but I do feel great about, if you're a Jets fan, and I do feel great about Aaron Rodgers this year.
Yeah, that's been a consistent theme earlier in the year, is the missing of tackles. Belichick's been ranting and raving about it, everywhere he's doing media. And I know we've talked about it on this show. And I think naturally people look to the way training camps are played, the way the preseason's played, where you see a lot of practices where there's no tackling, it's not allowed, or you get into the preseason and a lot of these pros, a lot of the vets aren't even playing, or if they are, they're playing like a quarter or so. And I'm also curious if anything has to do with, how flag happy the NFL is now. Like how much of this could be a reaction to, what's been happening over the last 10 to 15 years where, it's more and more difficult to control, helmet to helmet and kind of egregious, unnecessary roughness type hits or tackles. And I know that's not always the case, certainly not in an open field. But do you empathize at all for defensive players, Luke, where it's more difficult than it ever has been to just be like a nasty defensive player in the NFL?
Hayes, obviously I'm an offensive guy, but I really do. And I think last night was a great example of that. I can't remember which Jets defender got penalized, but it was like, a Patriot, I think it was a slant route in the second quarter-ish, and, the receiver goes down, and it's like we get a head contact, and it's a 15-yard flag. And it's like, what do you want the defender to do? And I believe Kirk Herbstreit said the same thing, where it's like, I totally agree with the whole, if you're a defender and you drop the crown of your helmet and you're doing the two-footed launch into somebody's head or neck area, sure, obviously it's a penalty. But if someone's running a slant and, Jacoby Brissett throws it low, trying to fit it into a window, and the receiver is already low and you're full speed because you might be the difference maker in breaking this route up, and you happen to contact the head or neck area, like that is an unbelievably unfair position for a defensive player. So I do think that is definitely part of it. And I think that what you said, like, I was a beneficiary of this as far as like, I've never done a 2-day in the NFL because it was against our CBA rules. But, I think that some coaches can kind of still get their team tackling well, playing well, etc. Obviously, Pete Carroll was a pretty good, our defense was pretty solid for a lot of years. But you see the Patriots last night, short week, they were not prepared to come out and tackle. That's just the bottom line. There's a few plays. I know it's not always easy, but there was a play in the backfield. I believe it was the youngster there, Braylon, second string back, and you got him 3 yards in the backfield, and we can't make the play. It's very strange to see, again, from a unit like the Patriots that are supposed to be one of the better units, to miss that many tackles. It does raise a lot of questions.
Absolutely. Whoa. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Because that was really quality analysis from our boy Luke Willson right there. And there he is, Al's brother. You were on fire yesterday. It's great to see you, Partsy. We're back in the winning circle. A lot of people are buzzing about us. There's a lot of belief coming in for Hayes and Bro. The stock is way up. Go ahead. Take a moment and explain how great you feel today.
I feel fantastic, Hazy B. I really do. I had a great weekend last weekend, and then I come in, my mind is clear, and we're just picking winners. That's what we're up to these days. We're picking victories, and I can't wait to pick another one this weekend.
I love it. It's very humble.
Congrats on your first win, Al's bro. Congratulations.
Thank you. First of many.
Mine was the first game we picked, but week 3 is still a good time to start.
Hey, it's a long season. It's a marathon.
Can we admit, Luke, that the backups aren't any better than the starters when it comes to the offensive line in New England? I think that was established last night. I'm not sure what kind of
fake news you were trying to push with that, because I also got the same tweet from one of your bot accounts, and I'm like, dude, you can't tweet the same thing from a different account. That I know the operation you've got going on. Okay, but my point with that is backups on different teams are different, meaning like one team's backup might be very, a poor football player with regards to the NFL, where then another team, their backups might be better. Clearly, backups are not better than the starters, Al, bro. Maybe I was misunderstood when I made that point, but I just want to clarify that.
Okay, that's a good clarification. Do you want to address the Al's brother bot farm allegations? Go ahead.
It's complete nonsense. These aren't bot farms. There's just a bot army out there that are Team Hazen, bro. People love us, Hazy B. They love us. I can't help that they're out there and they're just doing a God's work right now, bugging this guy, getting into his kitchen.
Good. I love it. Crazy. They're in his kitchen. They are in his kitchen. There's no question about that. All right, we got a 3-pack of games, and then we got a 2-pack on Monday night. This is a rare week where we got a 6-pack of games. This is big for us, Al's brother. An immaculate week would probably leave them in the rear view for the rest of the year. That's our plan, and it begins with these guys 100% fumbling their first game, which is the 1 o'clock window. Commissioner Doogie's he's offered up a tough one here, man. The 2-0 Saints laying 2.5 at home against the Eagles. Timo and Wilson, you're on the clock. Who do you like and why?
And I know I'm going to get killed for this, but we're going to take the Eagles. And, I sit here.
Whoa.
And I know where you guys are going to go, and I understand. And I think this is a toss-up to me. It's a very tough game to call. I am not a believer in this Saints team. I'm simply not. It's been obviously a good start for them, but 2 games is not enough. I don't think that Derek Carr is the truth. You look at even last week, they blow out the Cowboys, and you're sitting here thinking this team's great. Well, I believe it was 190 rush yards, and I'm not saying that Philadelphia's rush defense is great, but I don't think they're going to give 190 on the ground. And Derek Carr, because of that run game he had, I believe only threw for 240-ish, 242, and a lot of them were big plays. So now all of a sudden it's like we need to stop the big play from Derek Carr. We need to load the box up and make Derek Carr beat us with his arm, which I'm not believing he's going to do at least consistently. Maybe he has a couple good drives, and I think the Eagles obviously have a very, very tough loss to the Falcons. Probably should have won that game. Absolutely jammed you guys, by the way. Shout out Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
So I'm going to take the 2.5. I don't feel great about it. Again, you can probably talk some smack right now. I do not feel great about it, but I'm going to take the Eagles.
Okay. Al's brother, what do we think about that?
I wouldn't feel good about
Fangio.
I wouldn't feel good about it either. I mean, you talk about the Saints and the way that this offense is operating. I mean, this is a team that's scored on, 17 of their 19 drives? I mean, they're operating at the 4th best pace in all of football history. And Philly, you talk about trying to stop the run. They can't. They rank dead last.
It's been 2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks. No team. Only 3 teams have scored more points. It's factual. But you talk about Philly, they can't stop the run. That's an issue with them. They got gashed by Bijan last week. They're giving up 6.4 yards per carry. Last I checked, Alvin Kamara running pretty hot right now. And we clearly saw that there's still defensive issues with that Eagles team last week. It's a mess. I mean, under Vic Fangio, they're just as much as a joke they were under your boy Patricia. C.J. Gardner-Johnson hasn't practiced all week either. And look, offensively, you got to admit here, Luke, no A.J. Brown. We noticed last week against the Falcons, that was a big miss. The ADOT, the average depth of target for Jalen Hurts last week was 6.1 yards. That ranked 26th in the NFL in week 2 among all quarterbacks. If they can't push the ball down the field, it's going to be difficult for that team to put up points and keep up with the Saints. I love being with the Saints.
Did he just make up a stat?
Who that?
Matt Patricia.
Just make up some kind of random stat just now.
He did.
ADOT, average depth of target?
Now.
No, man. Vic Fangio is going to be asleep down in the bayou, man. He's
Vic Fangio.
It's not good.
Pucks Matt Patricia into bed. Do not ever disrespect Vic Fangio like that. That is one of the most egregious comments I've ever heard, Al's bro.
Yeah.
What he did to Hazenbro last weekend, man.
That was gross. The way he operated. It's also a short week. Vic Fangio, not a lot of sleep this week. I'm worried about him down there in the bayou. I'm worried. All right. Well, there you go. Hazenbro, I guess that'll make it 2-0 on our way towards an immaculate week. We love this, Al's brother. Wow. So they're on the Eagles, getting 2.5. Now it's Ravens, Cowboys. Commissioner Doogie jamming us up, doing everything he can to put us in a bad spot, but nothing can put us in a bad spot because of the ayahuasca retreat and what happened last night. The wheels are in motion for an immaculate week. Ravens laying 1.5 at Dallas. Al's brother, take the floor. Who do we like and why?
Yeah, I think this is the game of the week when it comes to week 3 on the NFL slate. And talk about Doogie jamming us up. A real late line movement went from -1 to 1.5. So if we want to back the Ravens, we're getting less than half a point at this point. But I do believe in the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they're going to be the more desperate team. Lamar Jackson ready to show why he's that 2-time MVP. And teams that start 0-3 have like I think 2.5%. Only 4 teams have ever made the playoffs starting 0-3. No shot. It's must win. Absolute must win. The Cowboys, they can't stop the run. They're giving up nearly 5 yards per carry. And the Ravens, that's what they do best. They got back to it last week after a struggle in week 1. They went off for like 151 yards on the ground. I think they continue that. And defensively, they're still a stout team. Top run defense in the league. The pass rush is still a top 10 unit as well. So I see the Ravens. Desperation's going to come in. I think they win this game. It's a pretty short line, 1.5. It's basically a pick 'em. I like the Ravens to cover.
I agree. It's a pick 'em. I still like the Ravens. I mean, they should be 1-1, maybe 2-0. They didn't play great against Kansas City, but they could have got back in that and won that game. They puked away a double-digit lead in the second half against Vegas last week. Inexcusable. Can't have that. Harbaugh and Lamar are going to be all over this. I'm with you on that. Hazenbro, we are on the Ravens. -1.5 in Jerry's world. What do you make of that, Luke?
Oh, can I ask you questions? Has the Ravens played well this entire year? You're Mr. 2-0, 2 weeks. We're dropping sane stats. If it wasn't for Lamar, they got absolutely blown out. I mean, dog walked against Kansas City. That game wasn't even close. Lamar just
dog walked.
Okay. I haven't heard that in years.
Yeah, Lamar just brought them back into that game. That game was a 3-score game if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson. And now you're going to sit here and tell me after you lose to Gardner Minshew and the Raiders that you're going to take them with points against the Cowboys?
Yeah.
And you expect me to sit here and say Al's brother knows what he's talking about? I just flipped on Twitter, and somehow his bot farm is still spamming me with nonsense. Okay? It's ridiculous. Like, who is listening to this guy?
Well, wait till you see how it plays out, man. Wait till you see how it plays out.
We got Vic Fangio who's gonna absolutely dominate in the 1:00 window. And who do I got? My second favorite defensive coach, Mike Zimmer, in the 4 p.m. window. I couldn't be more excited about this pick. We're 2-0, and
Mike McCarthy.
Okay.
Are you guys concerned about? I mean, you just called Dallas going 1-2 on the season. That would not be good for them.
Well, if Deshaun Watson had ever played football before, they'd be 0-2 possibly. I mean, that's another element.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Like they're not.
Cowboys
that great
got
either.
embarrassed, man. They're
It's
probably
going
to have the same urgency that the Ravens had. That was ugly for them.
You can spin it both ways. You can't spin it both ways. I do think the division factors in here. I think the Cowboys look at New York stinks. Washington's not very good. And the Eagles, they're okay, but they're not great. Where, if you start 0-3, you're probably toast anyway. In the AFC North, you're definitely done. Like, the Ravens, it's a mandatory win game. Mandatory win game. And I love that we're laying the points on the road. That takes stones, and that's how we operate on this team. Speaking of which...
and last
go ahead.
Well, just last I heard, unless there's an alternate injury report, that guy you mentioned, Lamar Jackson, expected to play in this game and will definitely lead them to victory as well, much like he almost did against the Chiefs.
Okay, well, the Chiefs are laying 3 on the road against primetime Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. This also under the lights in primetime. Do you have what it takes to take the points and take Kirk Cousins at home against the Chiefs? Owen Wilson, you're on the clock.
So, Hayes, I sat here, and everything in my being says to take the Chiefs here. And I sit here, and I'm like, how is this the line? What am I missing here? Because to me, the line should be bigger. Is that a fair statement?
I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree.
But then I realized that right now, Kirk Cousins in prime time, while playing for the Atlanta Falcons, is undefeated. And Kirk Cousins is absolutely about to dominate this game.
Oh.
And that's why we have to. I wish Partsy was here for this. Stick with our guy, Kirk Cousins, and take the points.
Are you trolling us right now? Are you throwing games? Be
Where's
honest.
the switch? Where's the switch up here?
Blink twice.
I was going to take the Chiefs, and I'm sitting next to TSN extraordinaire Hambone right now. You guys know him.
Yes.
I'm looking at me. He said to me, do not take the Chiefs. And I said, sell me on why not to take the Chiefs. And everything he said was exactly correct. And then I realized, beyond everything he said, that Kirk Cousins is the man. You thought Aaron Rodgers was great. Kirk Cousins is a GOAT in this league. You saw what he did to you last week. He's going to put another dagger into you Sunday night. We're sticking with Kirk Cousins. We're taking the Falcons.
Staggering pick.
Wow.
Staggering pick. I'm going to, is there a ransom note that needs to, what do we have to pay to get you released? There's no way you're a free man making that pick.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Okay.
I don't know.
When Kirk covers his 3 points, you'll see what happens.
Okay.
We'll be in the chat.
All right. You're taking primetime Kirk, man.
In a matchup that features Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins, he said, Kirk is the man?
Kirk's the man.
I don't know what's going on with you, Luke.
Bro,
you pissed away 2 points, buddy.
Did he not see what he did to you last week?
Yes.
You guys
against an inferior
you were in the
Eagles team.
chat. You were giddy. And Kirk pulled out the dagger and stuck it in your heart. You don't think he's going to do it again?
That was against the Eagles defense that's trash. Spags will not let that happen. My guy Spags will not let that happen again.
Your favorite defensive coordinator.
Guy.
Your favorite defensive coordinator.
Spags is my third guy. He's my third guy.
Well,
my favorite
my
guy
number
is
one.
Fangio, my second favorite is Zimmer, and my number 3 is Spags.
Well, Al's brother, Owen's claim to him being number one. So, Al's brother, for you, it's Spags is number one, and that's all that matters. All right, the picks are in. Owen Wilson are taking the points. Eagles plus 2.5 in New Orleans. Hayes and Bro laying the points, 1.5 Ravens in Dallas. And Team Owen Wilson with the most shocking pick of the season, taking points, primetime Kirk, plus 3 at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Good luck, buddy. Good luck.
I'm starting to think that this guy needs O in the fold because he's making some silly picks without O here.
Maybe O really is the glue guy. O's Aaron Rodgers, man. This guy's Robert Saleh.
I agree. I do miss Partsy, but I think we'll be all right this weekend. I'm sensing a 3-0.
Okay. All right, man. Well, we'll see. We'll catch up with you guys on Monday. Good seeing you, boys.
Sounds good. Talk soon.
There it is. Al's brother and Luke Wilson. Team Hayes and Bro, we're feeling very good going into the weekend. Very, very good.
It's a lot of faith in Kirk Cousins, man. That is, like, it's not only prime time, it's the Chiefs, it's Taylor Swift. It's like, how many people are watching that game? That's a lot of faith in Kirky.
That's a lot of faith in Kirk Cousins. It is a weird line, though. It is a weird line.
And the Chiefs, they haven't played their best football yet, but they've won, right? Like if they have a great game, they can really take it to them.
Absolutely. Like if they put it together, because they didn't play great last week, and that might be factoring into the line that Kansas City may be looking past Atlanta, again hitting the road for the first time. They've had pretty good schedule where they've started strong against Baltimore and Cincinnati. Maybe this is a bit of a trap game, so to speak. But you put Patrick Mahomes on the turf under the lights against primetime Kirk Cousins. I mean, come on. I love that we're on the Chiefs on Sunday night. That's going to get fired. We'll be texting within the next 5 minutes, I guarantee it.
Yeah, once he hears that.
Once he sees it, there'll be some commentary.
By the way, I know we got to go to break, but during that whole thing, I typed in Luke's name and his Twitter handle in the search bar, and you can see all the bots that are tweeting
there's so
at
many
him.
of them.
It's actually entertaining.
It's a fan base.
There's a crazy one that Al's brother actually follows, which I don't know if Al's brother is dumb enough to follow his own burner account, but I don't know.
He could be.
Maybe he's not.
Hey, Taylor Swift, she's got Swifties, and these are bros, right? Al's brother's bros. That's what it is, man. If you follow Al's brother and Hayes and Bro, then you're a bro. And that's exactly what's happening online. Don't blame us because the people are on board with the way that we're operating right now. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. Later in the hour, McLennan and Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, the best place for any family meal. Plus, for the month of September, kids eat free with minimum purchase when you dine in. So grab the kids and hustle in your local BP tonight. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Shocking news considering what we just heard. Luke Willson and Team Owen Wilson are betting against Patrick Mahomes on a Sunday night in Atlanta. And it's probably a perfect segue into, what we've been discussing throughout the day, which is the greatness of Shohei Ohtani. And when I think of, the most dominant athletes right now, it's Mahomes, Ohtani, McDavid, Scheffler. I think Jokic should be in there. Jokic has been pretty much the best player in the NBA the last, 3 or 4 years. He's got 3 MVPs. Denver seems to win the West every year. He's won an MVP in the NBA Finals. He's won the NBA championship. And I'm curious where you guys might put, where would Ohtani be for you? If I give you Mahomes, Ohtani, McDavid, Scheffler, Jokic, who's number one on that list for you guys? Most dominant current athlete.
Ooh. That's interesting.
It's probably between Mahomes and Ohtani for number one. And I think Mahomes has the team-driven narrative because they've won 2 championships in a row and, everything that goes into that. And, that remains to be seen what Ohtani can do with some playoff time. But I think it's got to be a toss-up between those 2 guys as far as the dominance.
The sexiest one is Mahomes because he wins.
Yes.
Right? That's but if you took his team away from him, if he had a garbage team, if he was like Ohtani and Mike Trout playing on a garbage team, you still look at the player and go, unbelievable player. We measure people by their success, right? And that's that's why I think the sexy one is Mahomes. But you could argue, I still come back to Ohtani just because how big of a unicorn he is. Hayes, you once said to me, I can't remember what the analogy was, like, it was a hockey analogy. That would be Ohtani is like Austin Matthews and Vasilevsky.
Right, he plays goalie too.
Yeah, like that's basically, like, I think Ohtani is the most unique because he does it all. And that's where with these other guys, I mean, yes, McDavid's dominant. Everyone dominates their own sport. Ohtani just does it kind of in both facets, which is so separate from the other guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do think Mahomes deserves to be number one because of the winning, and ultimately that's what sports is about.
Right.
Yet he doesn't put up like staggering numbers. He has, like, collectively throughout his career, he's putting up like win rates, and he does have a ton of touchdowns, and he doesn't throw a ton of picks, and he throws for yards, and he's had his MVP years have been astonishing. But it's not as if, he's putting together these seasons where you say, I've never seen anything like that. Brady's had big statistical seasons. Manning's had big statistical seasons, among others. But Ohtani and McDavid are putting up numbers that are, like, on an individual level, I think, above what Mahomes does in his sport. Like, Ohtani's, 50-50 season. He's got an OPS up over 1,000 now. He's hitting almost 300. It's an incredible year where, like, McDavid a couple of years ago, 64 goals and 150 whatever points, 100 assists last year. Like, the individual markers of Ohtani and McDavid, I think, are actually elevated above what Mahomes is doing. But Mahomes wins. And,
right.
To be fair to Ohtani, he hasn't really had the opportunity. McDavid, I guess, did. And, I guess it's a different sport. It's apples to oranges in many, many ways. But if you put Mahomes in the equivalent of where McDavid was Game 7 of the Cup final, I think Mahomes wins that game. Like, Mahomes doesn't accept losing. Right. And, McDavid didn't have a great game.
Mahomes has the you don't bet against him factor going for him. And Tom Brady had the same thing, where if it was a big game, that's what everyone would say. You never bet against Brady. Right now, you don't bet against Mahomes. And I guess with McDavid, he does things that, we haven't really seen, right? But last year, Kucherov was unbelievable. McKinnon wins the Hart. And guys really did close the gap as far as, the offensive production. I think with Shohei, look at the other superstars, like his peers that he plays against. And two of them, like we talked about, are on his team. It's Mookie Betts and it's Freddie Freeman. Those guys aren't even in the same stratosphere as Shohei Ohtani. Like, go around the league and think about the biggest names outside of Shohei that you can think of. They're not even close to that guy.
Aaron Judge is the only other guy.
Yeah, at least in hockey, it's like you can have the conversation. Yes, McDavid is one, but McKinnon, Matthews, Draisaitl, all these guys have kind of inched their way up in some kind of aspect.
Yeah, I feel like Ohtani is just a unicorn. Like, it's amazing what he brings to the table. The other guys, you're right, bridging the gap is the difference. But who's the closest to Ohtani?
It's like Judge. I mean, in terms of his batting, it's Aaron Judge. Who, listen, in terms of at the plate, Judge has had just as dominant of a season. What makes Ohtani so special this year is he's stolen 51 bases, which is something it was never a part of his program. Right. Like, he's just added this new element. It's like a fadeaway jumper this guy found over the summer. And now he's going to implement it, and you can't defend it. You can't stop it. But if you look at Aaron Judge's, like, statistical numbers at the plate, up until recently where he slowed down, they were staggering. Like, staggering numbers. And I would contend that if you were to ask every pitcher in Major League Baseball, who do you fear more at the plate, I think it would be probably a split. Right. Like, I think 50% of the pitchers would say I'd prefer to face Ohtani. I think I can get him. And 50% would say Judge. Because Judge is terrifying. Like, if he's locked in, he is terrifying.
He just had like a big dry spell too.
He did. Judge. He went 14 or 15 games without a home run.
It's like 15 games. Yeah.
But he's still got what, 50 what on the season? 53 now, 54. I think he's still got more than Ohtani.
Well, it's interesting if you were to ask pitchers in the majors, like go back over the years where maybe Ichiro was playing, right? Ichiro could get a bat on everything, like such a great pure hitter. If you would ask them, who would you rather go up against, Ichiro or pick the power hitter at the time? Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many guys would have the rationale, well, I might be able to strike out the guy who hits for power, but Ichiro, like that guy's he's gonna get me before I can get him.
Right, he's gonna work the count, or he's gonna force me to throw a bad pitch or walk him or something. But yeah, it's
a great question though, honestly, because everyone will have a different look at it. Like, Michael Jordan, for example, was, I mean, people call him the greatest of all time, probably arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time. Tiger Woods' run, in like Ohtani, it comes back to it. He's put himself in a stratosphere where these conversations where you're crossing sports over, Messi, or who's known as the best soccer player?
Yeah, Messi, Ronaldo. That's what he is. He's a one-named athlete too, right? You can just say Shohei, and everyone knows exactly who he is and what he does and where he plays. And
I think he's going to have a massive fall. He's going to have a massive playoffs. I think it's going to be one of the biggest spectacles of the fall is watching Ohtani in the playoffs with the Dodgers.
Yeah. I'd like to see it, and I think you're probably right. It's tough to bet against it. All right, we'll come back with our best bets brought to you by FanDuel and look ahead to a busy weekend in sports. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, McLennan and Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, the best place for any family meal. Plus, for the month of September, kids eat free with minimum purchase when you dine in. So grab the kids and hustle into your local BP tonight. One of those rare weekends where you got the Argos playing, you got NFL football, you got baseball, you're going to have hockey, right? Everything's kind of coming together. Worlds are colliding here.
Yeah,
I love it.
Great, though.
Great spot.
It's a good time of year, man. It's a good time of year. When you guys, I don't know, when do you start to get excited about the NHL regular season? Do you need to see a few preseason games go by? Or do you kind of get excited right away?
Honestly, a lot of it it's going to sound weird, but based on fantasy pools and stuff, when a date comes down for that, let's say the season opens October 7th, it's October 3rd, we're doing this. You got to be prepared, know where everything's going. That's when the action starts coming together. For me anyway. I mean, also they got to make cuts and move guys around, and I don't think we're really there yet. I think we're still a week or two away.
I'm 2 weeks away because you're right. Seeing how teams get through training camp, if they're injury-free, all of that type of stuff, then you get down and you have to start making some decisions. And, who goes on waivers? You might have to, trade a player here or there just to be cap compliant. That's when you start to get your roster for the most part shaped up. That's when I get excited. And then there's always one or two surprises or somebody's excited. I can't remember the guy's name. He played in Vegas. It's a guy who scores 1 million goals in the preseason. 9 goals, and then he's plays in the minors all the time. It's going to drive me nuts.
I don't know who you're
trying
referencing.
To think about it, but there's a guy. Basically, guys who always have great.
That plays for Vegas. The guy that plays for Vegas.
He did play for Vegas. I can't remember. Don't quote me. Now I shouldn't have brought it up. But my point being is the storylines through preseason when you have guys that overperform and all of a sudden, and then that first 10 games, they drop off.
There's 2 preseasons. There's the preseason games where you still have the guys that are going to go back to junior and some of the guys that they're on a one-way ticket to the AHL. Then there's the next preseason where you start to get more vets and maybe some guys that are serious about getting a call-up at some point. I think once we get to that point, that's when you start to see the team and the lines start to take a little more shape.
Absolutely. Sunday, Leafs Sens down at Scotiabank Arena. And then they play Tuesday in Ottawa, Thursday against Montreal, Saturday in Montreal, and then their Thursday-Saturday routine, I believe it is, against Detroit that they do every year. And then before you know it, it'll be go time. So It's going to happen quickly, and next week we're going to Montreal. We're going to be here to do the show on Monday, then we're in Montreal from Tuesday through Friday at the President's Cup. I can't wait for it.
I'm fired up, and it's funny. I just Googled his name. It's Brendan Perlini, and Al's brother just sent me a note too. Remember that guy, the Perlini?
Brendan Perlini, yes. He was a World Junior player, I think.
He's a nice player, but he just hasn't found a home as like an everyday guy.
All right, let's have a big off season here. Let's get into the preseason here. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Under the number in the Chargers-Steelers game. I don't think Herbert's going to play. Fields isn't going to put up numbers. This will be 17-13, just a brawl out there. I can't wait for that game, actually. Both 2-0 teams. Bucks, I'm laying the points at home against Denver. I don't think Denver's any good. I think Tampa's legit. Same thing, Seattle laying 4.5 at home against Miami. No Tua, that is big trouble for the Dolphins. And Seattle's 2-0, and they look really good, and they're back home. And that's a long, long trip for Miami. The longest trip you can get, basically, in pro sports, Miami to Seattle. So there's your parlay. It pays plus 611 on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the Overdrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 plus. Physically located in Ontario. All right, boys. Good stuff. Good stuff as always. Next week will be a fun one. We're here in Toronto on Monday and then Montreal the rest of the way. We can't wait for that. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out today. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. Radio, TV, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the weekends. We're back Monday at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.